In this video, I'm going to teach you how to solve any equation of motion question using these three simple steps. Now, the equation of motions are also referred to as Suvat equations. Now, Suvat is derived from the symbols of the 4 or 5 physical quantities that are found in the Newton's equation of motion. I said 4 or 5 because when you watch closely, we have 5 quantities here. But technically, we have just 4 because initial velocity and final velocities are all velocities. So you have displacement, velocity, acceleration, and time. Now, when you study these equations, you'll notice that in each of the equations, we have 4 quantities. Equation 1 have final velocity, initial velocity, acceleration, and time. Equation 2 has displacement, initial velocity, time, and acceleration. And the third one have final velocity, initial velocity, acceleration, and displacement. So at any point in time, you have 4 quantities in each formula. Therefore, if you are given any question, you have to make sure you have 3 known quantities. Then the question you are asked to find, or the quantity you are asked to find, will be your unknown. So these two, the 3 and 1, will give you the 4 quantities. So you select an appropriate equation and then you are good to go. Now, if you watch closely, you'll notice that for A and U, which is acceleration and initial velocity, it is present in each of the formulas or equations we have up there. So when A is missing or when U is missing, you can use any of these formulas directly. But then there are some other equations you can use, which I will show you at the end of this video. But then for now, these are the common ones we are using, especially at the WASI or senior high school level, at the GCSE level, or at the A level. So now let's quickly look at the steps that we need to go through in order to solve any equation of motion question. The first step is to extract data from the question. So anytime you are given a question, make sure you extract any data in the question. We solve an example at the end of the video and you see what I mean by this. Now, after extraction, the most important thing I'll always mention is to take note of your SI unit. SI unit. If there is any unit that is not in SI unit, make sure you convert it to SI unit immediately after you extract your data. Now, the second step is to identify 3 known quantities in your question. Then identify the one unknown that you are looking for. Once you're able to do that, then you choose an appropriate equation that have all the 4 quantities that you have outlined. The 4 quantities, I mean the 3 unknowns and the 1 knowns that you have identified. These 4 quantities should be able to match any of these equations. So these are the 3 steps that you go through. The most important thing here, the difficult aspect here for some students, is how to choose the appropriate equation. So let's look at how we choose or determine which equation we use in calculating or solving our equation of motion question. Now, to select an appropriate equation for your question or your solution, you always have to first write this down. Suvat, where S means displacement, U means initial velocity, V means final velocity, A is acceleration, and T is time. Now, if you notice, let me do this so that it will be easy for you to remember. Now we have 3 consonants here, 3 consonants there, and then we have just 2 vowels. If you remember, I told you that U and A is common throughout. So at this level, at our level now, we are mostly interested in, or the question always comes such a way that it is S, V, or T that is missing. So if we check closely, in our first equation, we have 4 quantities here, but one is missing. What is missing here? S. Anytime S is missing, know that you are using the first equation, equation 1. Now when you check the second one, we have 4 quantities here, but then V is missing here. So anytime V is missing, note that you are using the second equation. Now if you check the last one too, T is nowhere to be found here. So anytime you have an equation or you have your 4 quantities and T is nowhere to be found, it means that you are going to use the third equation. If you're able to have this mental picture, it will be easy for you to identify which equation to use. So anytime you have your quantities and you realize that S is missing, you are going to use the first equation. If it is V, you are using the second equation, and if it is T, you are using the third equation. Now what if it is U and A that is missing? I'll tell you what to do very soon. Sometimes you get stuck with only 2 knowns and 1 unknown. It isn't that the others are not there, but probably you are not realizing it. They are being embedded in certain phrases. Phrases such as from rest. Anytime you hear from rest, it means that initial velocity is equal to 0 meter per second. Or when you hear comes to a stop, this also means that final velocity is equal to 0 meter per second. And then lastly, anytime you hear constant velocity, it means that acceleration is also equal to 0 meter per second squared. So you may have 2 known, you have to look out for these phrases as well. At this point, let's try some example with these steps that we just discussed. Now I have these 3 questions. I'm going to solve one and leave one for you to solve. And I'm going to solve the third one and leave the first and second one for you to solve. After trying your hands on it, let me see what you've had or the answers you had in the comment section, and let's discuss it there. Now I'll take the last question and then I solve. Now a body moving with a velocity of 2 meters per second accelerates uniformly to 10 meters per second squared through a distance of 135 meters. How long does it take the body to travel this distance? So the first thing you have to do is to extract our data. So let's look for our solution. So the first thing you need to do is to extract data. This is very important. So extract data. I'm not saying anytime you get a question you write extract data. This is not for you to write, but it is for you to remember. So what is the data in the question? The first data I have here is the velocity. A guy is moving with a velocity of 2 meters per second. Which of the velocities do you think this is? This is the initial velocity, and that is equal to 2 meters per second. Then the next one is acceleration. So it accelerates uniformly at 10 meters per second. So acceleration A equals 10 meters per second squared. And then finally I have displacement or distance, which is S, to be equal to 135 meters. Then I'm asked to find how long, and how long is time. So I'm looking for time, T, which is equal to unknown. So I've extracted my data. I have my 3 I have my 3 known variables and I have the 1 unknown, which makes it 4. So to identify which formula to use, just write this down. Suvat. Now, as I said earlier on, we have 3 consonants here. We have S, V, and T as the consonant here. If you check the question, we have 4 quantities. One is missing. Which is missing? V. Since V is missing, it means that we are going to use the second equation. You can number the consonant. Number the first one 1, the second consonant 2, and the third one 3. So if V is missing, we are using equation 2. So we are using S to be equal to UT plus half AT squared. So at this point, it's either I make the unknown the subject or I substitute directly. I prefer to substitute directly, so I just start my substitution. So I have 135 meters equals to U, which is 2, and T is unknown, plus half A acceleration is 10 meters per second, and then T is unknown. So let's simplify. So I have 135 to be equal to 2T plus 5T squared. Now I have T squared. This gives me a quadratic equation. So this is going to give us a quadratic equation. So let me rewrite my quadratic equation. So I'm moving 135 to the other side of the equation. So I get 0 to be equal to, I start with the highest power of T, which is 5T squared. Then the next highest power is T. So 2T minus 135 meters. So this, with your calculator, you can go ahead to solve this, but then this is algebra. With your calculator, you should know that, or you find out that T have 2 values, and the first one is negative 5.4 seconds, and then the second value of T is 5 seconds. Which one of these do you think is the answer for this? Time do not travel backwards, so we can have a negative time. Likewise, it is not a vector quantity, but it is a scalar quantity, and therefore it always has positive values, no negative values. So the time it took the car to travel a distance of 135 meters is 5 seconds. Now, what if out of the 5 Suvat equations, instead of S, V, or T missing, it is U that is rather missing? Now you can use the equation which is not so common at this level, S equals to VT minus half AT squared. Remember, when it is U, it is plus, but then when it is V, it is minus. So when U is missing, we use this particular equation. Now what about A? When A is missing, we use the virgin, I call this virgin formula, S equals to U plus V divided by 2 multiplied by T. So you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the quantities, and you can use this. So A is missing out of this. The reason why we don't give much attention to this is that these equations are such that A, or acceleration, is very important, because they are only possible when acceleration is constant or at constant acceleration. And I call this the virgin formula because all the other formulas apart from the equation 1 or the first Newton's formula came out of this. So if you want to get the second one, you substitute the first equation in place of V. If you want to get the third one, you make t the subject in the first equation and substitute here. And if you want to get this one that we just mentioned, you make u the subject in that Newton's first equation and substitute in this. So that's why I call this the virgin equation, or the mother of all the Newton's or Suvat equations. So these, we don't use them mostly, but this one sometimes is a bit likely you might some way somehow be pushed to use this particular formula, which is okay, but this is not so common, and if you are to use it too, it doesn't mean you are wrong. So take note of these formulas. So at this point we can say that the Suvat equations, or the Newton's equation of motion, are 5, but then at our level we stick to 3. So we have 3 equations of motion, or Newton's equations of motion, at our level, but we can have some other equations which I have just revealed to you. So take note of this one too as well.